redneck garage. Well, let's take a look outside and see what it looks like out there. And while we're in the garage that's recently cleaned up. It's been rainy and wet and cold, but we did get our leaves raked to the street, and the city will come pick them up. And there's the Jeep ready for new parts to be installed. So let's get going. So since the weather's nasty, I thought that we would get started on putting a new windshield in a Jeep TJ. We've got our new windshield, I've got weather stripping, I've got urethane, I've got a caulk gun. So let's get going, getting some glass back in this baby. Okay, when you're doing a Jeep windshield, you're going to need a couple tools to be able to do it and some supplies, besides the glass that goes in. First thing you're going to need is a windshield frame, and this one's been repainted, it's cleaned off, it's ready to go. You're going to need some urethane. This is a 428, it's on my webpage under products page. This is a urethane like they use from the factory, and it is some thick stuff, let me tell you. If you're going over metal, you're going to need a primer, and this, I bought the primer with the kit. And it goes on the bare metal to make it adhere, the urethane adhere to the metal. Now I'll scuff this up a little bit, but bare metal takes urethane primer. If you're going over old urethane, like you've cut it down and you still got urethane, you don't necessarily have to use the primer. You're going to need a windshield gasket. This is one of the gaskets you use to put the windshield in. Super cool. And you're going to need a caulk gun. Now, you could try to do it by hand, but let me tell you, this stuff is so thick that you break your wrist trying to get this stuff to come out of the tube. I've got my Milwaukee electric, and it works great. You just use it to put the bead around the windshield frame, and I found that these work really well. They also make a Ryobi one that's a little bit cheaper. I think this is on my product page too at the end of the video, but these things are a lifesaver as far as that goes. Now, let's see what we need to do to get this thing prepped. Okay, so first, cue the very sad music. Let it play for just a second or two. You hear the sad music? Okay, let's take a look at what we got. When I opened up my windshield, it was shattered into a bunch of little pieces. Being laminated glass, there was no crinkling in the box. However, when I pulled it out, it was shattered. Now, the sad part of this story is that, of course, there was nothing wrong with the box itself. It was in perfect shape. It was encased in the foam. It had plastic all around. I cut the box open and found that. If you look at the box, one of the stickers says, "Open and inspect immediately. Glass handled with care. Fragile, high claim item." And that's really your lesson about buying windshields online. If you do happen to buy one, make sure that you heed the instructions on the side of the box that say inspect immediately, rather than buying it and opening it 7 months later to find that it's broken, because at that point there is no claim. There is no refund. There's only ordering another one. So I would say that make sure that if you order a windshield online, that you do check it as soon as it's delivered from the little brown truck, because somewhere in the shipping it was broken. Now we're going to have to wait for a new windshield to come in, and that will be the continuation of this video. But I was pretty pissed. Now, whenever I'm doing something like this that I don't do on a regular basis, I like to look at the factory service manual, and that's what I did. And in fact, I put a link to installing the glass from the factory Jeep service manual in the link in this video. If you look below, there's a PDF of what the factory manual says to do. However, I thought there was a little bit of discrepancy or not clearness, or, you know, you could get confused thinking about putting this stupid windshield on. One of the things that I didn't think it was clear about while we're waiting for our glass that I don't have, that was shattered and broken, I'm still stuck on that. There's an inside molding that goes around, and these are about 20 bucks if you need a new one. This one was, I was able to save the old one, and it looked like it was in decent shape. So, you know, I was able to use at least one part after I broke the first windshield from the other video. Now, you're going to set your inside one on first, because if you don't have that on, you're not going to put it on later, because there's going to be glue. So make sure that you get your inside molding set into your frame around before we go any further as far as the installation. And as soon as we get our windshield, we're going to be using this, which is your outer molding. Put that around the glass, and then we can go ahead and install our glass with the urethane in the frame. But I wanted to make sure that you knew that you needed to put your inside molding on before you put your glass in, otherwise you're not going to get it in. Alright, so this is the same packaging. Open and inspect immediately. Glass handled with care. High claim item. Fragile. And Trev, what are we going to do? We're going to open this dang thing.
Open it up and check it.
Yeah, so we're going to see what the hell's going on with this. So at least if it's broken, I can get another one. Hey! It looks like we have some intact glass here. Yeah, that looks good. And I don't really know if I broke it or if, you know, something happened in shipping on the last one, because I had it laying around here for 7 months. That looks good. I don't see any cracks, any damage, anything like that. So as long as I don't shatter the dang thing before it goes in, we should be in good shape. Looks great. Awesome! Alright, now that we got our glass that is unbroken, which looks much better than the other one, we got our gasket that I'm going to put on. And where the glass slides into this gasket, you can see that there's adhesive in there, and it will get it to adhere to the glass. So I'm going to work that around and get all the window molding on there and get it good and set down. And we're just going to work the window molding around the edge. Now what you want to do is when you're putting it on, it's going to want to roll up off of these corners. So I let it just sit long enough to stretch and conform to those edges, and just keep pushing it down, and eventually it'll be sitting where it needs to be. And when you look at the back, and you'll be able to tell from that. But you just want to make sure that it's flush all the way around your edges. And that's why using a new one's better, because if you use an old one, it can have crap in it and it won't lay down like it's supposed to. So we're going to let this just kind of settle down right here on these corners. You can see where it's popping up. And you're just going to keep pushing it down, and that rubber will eventually bend at the corners. You can also take a heat gun and just heat it up just a little bit, and it'll make it a little more pliable. You don't want to get it real hot though. Okay, now I've got the weather strip all the way around. I keep having to press it in just to get it up on there, right? You have to trim it here at the center. And I got it pretty close. It's going to have urethane behind it, so it should be just fine. Now we're going to test fit this into our frame, see how it looks. Alright, that looks super cool. Now I'm going to let it sit on here for a little while before I actually put the urethane on, see if it'll settle down in there a little bit. Because you can see that it's trying to push out a hair. And some of it is a little bit of flex from the rubber behind it. Might need to, right up here in the top, push that rubber in just a little bit, and then we'll be ready to install it. But it looks really good. Okay, so now I'm going to take my Scotch-Brite pad and just kind of scuff up right here on this paint. You can see right here on this edge where I've scuffed it up. Just kind of scuff that up a little bit, and then we're going to put some primer on it, clean off our glass, and we'll be ready to glue this baby in. Awesome! Next thing we're going to do is clean off the glass really well. The last time I did this, somebody said, "Oh, you can't use Windex. It won't adhere to that," and blah blah blah. But if you read the factory manual, it says use an ammonia-based glass cleaner and not a solvent-based. So whoever said that might need to read the factory manual, I'd say, because that's what it says to use. And I've never had an issue using Windex before, so there you go. Here's my primer. It's called Beta Prime, and it comes with an applicator already on it. So we're going to get that good and juiced up. And you want to put the primer about an inch coming in. I'm just going to go around the edge of the glass with the primer about an inch. And then we'll let that dry. But I'll do this, and then I'll do the metal in here. I'll prime it, and we'll be ready to put the glue down. Okay, so it's prepped. I have my amazing assistant, Jennifer. Say hi. Everybody loves you, Jennifer. You're supposed to be all happy and just ready to go. She's going to film, and I'm also going to film from the other side too. So we're going to get a lot of different views on this, but the primer is on. I've got my urethane ready to go over here, and we're going to start squirting some urethane. I got my Milwaukee caulk gun, and I got a fresh battery in it, so I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get some of this stuff to come out. Oh yeah, and it is thick. And we're ready to start applying some urethane. Now, what you want to do is make sure that you get a bead big enough to go higher than this rubber gasket on the inside, because if you don't, then it won't really have anything to stick to. So we're going to go ahead and lay in a good bead of urethane. And then we're going to press down the corners and just hold it there till it starts tacking up a little bit. Alright, so that's super cool. We got the glass in and the windshield frame. It looks really good. Let's take a close-up view of that. Awesome. That looks really good. It's starting to harden up. I can feel that the rubber is getting good and set in there. I put a little bit of anti-seize here on the corners. Use anti-seize on your bolts too, so if you ever have to take it off, it comes right off. I use copper. You can use aluminum or copper. It really doesn't matter. And it looks super, super good. It just needs a little bit of cleanup. Awesome! After we had a broken glass, this one looks mighty fine in there. Make sure that if you put a windshield in your Jeep and the frame's still in it, that you allow it enough time for the urethane to harden up, because you don't want to come to a stop sign and stop and the windshield keep going. That's awesome. Anyway, we got a lot of stuff coming up in the Redneck Garage. We're going to be installing this, finishing up the motor, the injectors, a bunch of stuff anyway. Any comments or questions, suggestions, put them down below. I am David from the Redneck Garage. Keep turning wrenches.